I don't have a problem with somebody who happens to be a Gentile playing a Jew if they do it right.
I tie a rope around my waist and my housekeeper just pulls me out of the pool.
So are you, friend? Do you like anything? I don't like you. And I'm running radical experiments on other people too, against their will. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to
Buckle up, baby.
episode 70. We're officially baby boomers on episode numbers here. Michael?
70, man.
70's nice. We're rolling,
Yeah.
rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
Let's get right to it. This will be another Riverside for the people, sort of the summer session, summer schedule, Riversiding from different areas as we travel and do all sorts of things. I was just in LA for a week. You were home?
Which is not doing work for a week.
Nice. I like that.
On the podcast.
Yeah, we had a little conversation about content burnout while I was there, which
We had a
was
long
interesting.
conversation about content burnout.
I finally got bit a little bit where it just kind of the thought of posting at a certain point.
You put up a message.
I did, and I took it down. I realized I made a
did?
mistake. I did take it down.
I didn't realize that.
See, I'll tell you, the backstory was I started seeing content creators putting up like, off for August, see y'all in September, be back for the, and I thought that was a nice sentiment. Like, oh, look, everyone's kind of like messaging that they can also take vacations and take breaks, like the way TV media has seasons. Like, the problem is that with content or podcasts or anything, like, there's no seasons, there's no breaks built into the system. So I like that people are kind of making that statement. And then I did one, but it ended up inviting a weird reaction of like people reaching out, like, hope everything's okay, all of these things. And I quickly realized that by me posting that I'm taking a break, I'm indulging in the same behavior that's kind of problematic, which is asking permission to not post. And I'm grateful for everyone enjoying my content, but I can just not post.
Right.
I don't need to ask permission.
Specifically from people who are they're getting it for free.
Yeah.
If I had compensating you.
If I had a show, a performance that I had to cancel, obviously you put a message out and you let people know it'll be rescheduled, refunded. That's fair. Right. But, I appreciate everyone's positive feedback and loving the stuff. That's really nice and heartwarming and all that. But transactionally, no, I could just stop posting. I don't owe the world a video for that day because I've been posting like every day for 2 years, like 5 days a week.
It might have been an interesting experiment to say, hey, I'm off. I'm like, not posting, contribute to my Patreon. Like put those things together. Of like you miss me? Well,
come and get it. Nah, 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 nah. Well, that's an interesting move. Like, all videos for the next month will be exclusively on Patreon. Come on over. Hey.
Oh, that's cool also.
Ding.
Yeah,
Speaking
get
of which,
T-shirt when you sign up.
I am looking into like the season 3 or whatever of Buckle Upness and whatever I do on Patreon, and thinking about that, of converting all this attention into real things. So we could talk about that more at another time, but that is something I'm thinking about. But that's a great move. All content will be.
It's something Tim Ferris would do.
Yeah.
Tim Ferris loves doing these experiments of like, what if he just thought radically differently? Like,
I just saw that video too. So what I do is radically, constantly experiment. When I wake up in the morning, I take a vial of toxic poison and I microdose it just to see exactly where the line between life and death is. And I do radical experiments.
Yeah, like
radical.
How badly do I want to live? Like, I assume I want to live, but do I?
Yes, I attempt to drown myself every day just until the oxygen runs out, and then what happens is a certain euphoria takes place, and I hang upside down by my gravity boots, which I think everyone should do at least once a day.
So I tie a rope around my waist, and my housekeeper just pulls me out of the pool, like right before I'm gonna die.
And I'm running radical experiments on other people too, against their will. And it's amazing. I'm giving everybody mushrooms in microdoses and seeing their response. And the results have been amazing. Gotta love the Tim Ferris optimization of every aspect of every minute of every day.
He has, he's gone full circle actually, and now he says he's experimenting with not experimenting. And optimizing by not, I'm serious, he's optimizing by not optimizing. And it's like, yeah, you're just the person who most people do that.
Welcome back. Welcome to humanity. This is what. Yeah. So instead of what I do is in the morning, instead of doing a cold plunge, ice bath, sauna, hanging upside down my gravity boots, I just eat breakfast. And that's
I got a job.
and that's considered innovative. I work at a law firm now, and I'm experimenting with that. Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, you know when something reaches that critical mass and everyone starts to notice it, it becomes a joke. Like I started in my stand-up doing jokes about, fitness influencers and people who optimize every minute of every day to the point where it's not like Andrew Huberman, these guys who it's just like have morning routines that last 16 hours. And it's like your morning routine is 16 hours. By the time it's done, you got to go to sleep. And then you got to the minute you wake up, make sure you do a beeline for sunlight. If you don't hit that sunlight within the first 5 minutes, you age twice as fast. You wake up, you're going to die. So that's been getting good laughs because it's true. Everyone's just like stressed. Stop making me feel like I'm going to die tomorrow and my aging is two times worse than average and that I could actually be half my age if only I hit sunlight the first thing in the morning and took a sip of magnesium phosphate. But I don't have that. I don't have magnesium phosphate. What do I do?
Yeah. It's a full-time job.
To like just live for these people.
If I did everything I want to do to take care of myself every day, it would literally be 3 hours. 3 to 4 hours of what I
saw like a Goggins post. He was like, so I started stretching, Joe, and I like stretching. I started doing that 2 hours a day. These guys have more than 24 hours a day. They're doing things 36 hours a day.
Yeah, well, they don't have families.
Yeah. That's true too.
They don't have jobs.
I saw a funny clip of Bill Burr on a stage. He's like, it's enough. These guys thinking they're going to do a cold plunge. Go to the gym. You're not even going to the gym. You think you're going to do a cold plunge, an ice bath? That's going to fix your problems? Oh my God, you're not even going to the gym. Stop eating crap. Stop. You're not an Olympic athlete here. You're not going to the Olympics. Just go to the gym. Do a little treadmill. Lift some weights.
It also preys on people who have some real problems. Like I have a friend who's had a very rough time getting it together.
Yes.
And every once in a while, like I'll call him. He's like, "Oh, I'm doing great because I just discovered Wim Hoff." And I did what he said, and I really feel like this is what I need, and I'm like, yeah, I think your problem has been that you haven't been cold enough. Like you need that's what's wrong.
The Wim Hof breathing technique too, right? It's like you haven't been holding your breath.
Yeah, but they just give you like this
panaceas.
This will help you. Yeah, and like these people who have trouble focusing just jump from one to one. And...
Yeah. You wonder, right? You wonder who it's really for. Maybe it's just for that person who can climb Mount Everest without a jacket. I don't know.
Yeah, or even who's really paying the bills around the Wim Hof account. Uh-huh. It's probably not. It's probably mostly people who are watching and not doing it, and just sort of feeling bad about not doing it. And people who should have like other focuses, but have sort of they're like, oh, this is a great distraction. I can think I'll solve my problems by breathing underwater.
It's always hard to discern from these alpha, incredible human beings like a Wim Hof, who clearly has done incredible feats, incredible accomplishments. They put like a disease into his arm, and he fought the disease with breathing techniques, and they could literally, yeah. No, he's real. Like his.
Oh no, yeah, I'm sure he is real.
So there's a documentary about him, and they inject a bacteria into his arm with like a nanobot like thing, and they follow it through his body. And then he does this technique, and
he got the COVID vaccine.
Something going through his body that they can track on a thing, and they watched his breathing technique, and they watched him fight it. It was very cool and interesting. And then he like climbs Everest with no shoes, and I wonder how much of that is just entertainment content for the rest of us versus translatable stuff that we could all do. Now people talk about it. I've tried some of the Wim Hof breathing things sometimes for stress or whatever, maybe, but the stuff requires such a discipline that for someone who's trying to achieve basic discipline, maybe trying to aim at one of the hardest things is not the means, but the end. You'll get to Wim Hof breathing when you get your life together.
Right. Retire and then do some breathing techniques.
In other words, I don't know if that will solve it for you, or you will become someone who can do that when you get the small things together. Yeah. That's why Jordan Peterson's saying, clean your room is probably better than hold your breath for 45 minutes,
Right.
That's why he says clean your room, or just put one thing away. Right. It's like a psychologist's approach. It's like one thing at a time.
Speaking of Nazis, you want to talk about Bradley Cooper's nose?
What a transition, Michael! I can't believe you would call him a Nazi. It's disgusting. I I can't let you get away with that, but it was a great transition.
I don't think he's a Nazi.
No, good. But yes, the Bradley Cooper Nosegate or Jew face.
Yeah, so I haven't heard much about this really.
Okay. Right now it's all circulating. Bradley Cooper, who I think is a brilliant actor and director, is playing Leonard Bernstein in a biopic.
Yeah,
Do you know
is
who
it
Leonard?
biopic?
In a movie about him. I don't know if it's
biopic.
how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
That I'm not sure. Biopic.
It's like biographical picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know who Leonard Bernstein is?
I actually, I could pretend I do, but I don't really.
Brilliant, amazing 20th century composer, and yeah, and a scholar of music and composer. Did movie scores and original compositions, from classical to jazz to everything. He's brilliant. He's one of the iconic composers of our time.
What year was he alive in?
I mean, you could find videos of him on YouTube giving lectures at Harvard. So it's not like it's sort of like I don't know when he passed away or what his status is today. Jamie, can you look that up? Leonard Bernstein. There's videos of him giving lectures at Harvard in like the 80s or 90s or something. So it's like modern-ish, not like Beethoven era.
Has he composed something I would know?
Leonard Bernstein. I think he did Leonard Bernstein compositions. You know the Paparazzi by Lady Gaga?
Yeah.
That was his. Just kidding.
No.
He was an American conductor, composer, pianist, music educator. I'm trying to think of his filmography. I think he did a lot of classic. I think he did film scores too. I wish I could tell you offhand. West Side Story. Yeah, he wrote his best known work is the Broadway musical West Side Story. He wrote West Side Story. You know, all the music for that.
So you're right. I thought he was a musicals fella.
I think there was music. I think there was musicals and I believe early film scores, but big with the classical world and Philharmonics. Theatrical works. Peter Pan, Trouble in Tahiti, Wonderful Town, West Side Story, classic old school movie, everything. You know, just like one of these guys, okay? Leonard Bernstein, and he was a Jew. And Bradley Cooper is portraying him in a movie and wore a prosthetic nose to kind of look more like him. It might have been a little bit on the bigger side. Okay, whatever. Okay. Might have been on the bigger side, and now people are saying Jews should play Jewish actors. This is offensive. This is anti-Semitic. And personally, I think it's ridiculous because he's wearing a prosthetic nose to try to look a little more like Leonard Bernstein, not look like a Jew.
Right. What do you? So I think it's kind of missing. I think there are more important things to focus on. But I actually do feel pretty strongly about Jews playing Jews. Do you disagree with that?
Yes. It's called acting. It's just called acting. You're playing characters that you are not. And I don't think Jews have a disadvantage in Hollywood.
When there's a character, I mean, we talk about Miss Maisel sometimes.
Only if they nail it. I have a problem with people who don't nail it.
Well, it's less about nailing it than when being Jewish is the primary characteristic of the actor.
Yeah.
I do have a problem about not finding a Jewish actor to play it.
What if somebody did it and it was so convincing and they were consulted by like Hasidim or Jewish people and they portrayed a Jew and you were like, that is spot on. Then I would be flattered. Yeah.
That rarely happens.
I agree with you on
picture of what they think a Jew should act like.
But that's a bad job. I don't have a problem with somebody who happens to be a Gentile playing a Jew if they do it right. But that's like an unaffiliated Jew playing a religious Jew. Same problem. You have a problem with that too. Caricature, all the same. You've said it before. It's a Jewish writer in the room who says, I had a bar mitzvah, and so they try to do a portrayal of a Hasidic community, and they don't know anything about it. What's the difference?
I think that's more of like a writing problem. Like, if Leonard Bernstein's, I don't think him being Jewish.
That's not the center point
of the story. Yeah,
it's not.
It doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah. You have a problem with the portrayal of a Jewish character being portrayed badly, or like inaccurately, or shallow, or in a caricature.
There's that, but then there's also the double standard of people of color having to be voiced by people of color, and like gay characters being needed to play having. I don't know why I can't speak right now.
Yeah.
Gay characters
Being need
have
to be played by gay characters. I
gay
think
characters,
across the
exactly.
board, with the exception of black people and white people, it's kind of hard to play a convincing black role if you're white, and that has its own problems.
No, but so let's say like in the '90s, Al Pacino played a Cuban a character in
Yes,
Scarface. Like
yes.
anyone remotely from the Middle East could be played by like someone who is Hispanic.
Right.
Like like they're like so I'm saying like an Indian character now wouldn't be played by someone who's just kind of tan.
I understand. I
Like
understand.
you know what I mean? For some reason, being Jewish doesn't seem to be like a category of its own that needs to be represented.
Here's what my take is. First of all, in the Leonard Bernstein case, like you said, he's not playing the Jew that is Leonard Bernstein. He's playing Leonard Bernstein, who happens to be Jewish.
Right.
And I think he wore the prosthetic nose. It leans a little on the big side, but it's to sort of transform a little bit. But I would say that, to your point, my issue is if somebody's going to attempt to do it and they're not affiliated and they nail it, that's a brilliant job as an actor. That means you've done the research, that you've done the consultation, and you've nailed the accent, the portrayal. Yeah. So if somebody played a Middle Eastern character or an Israeli, they weren't Jewish, but they nailed it, that would, for me, be a source of pride. I'm like, look how much time and effort they gave. The issue is if they don't, and it's watered down or a caricature, but that's a problem of writing and acting, not a problem of blood and race.
Where my mind goes is like, so you have like Rachel Brosnahan is a non-Jewish actress playing a Jewish character whose Judaism is a huge part of the story and the character, and she puts on the schmear of like all the Jewish stereotypes of how a Jew in the 50s would speak.
Right.
So here's why it doesn't work for me, because my mind goes to like oh, she's playing really anxious. Like why is Miss Maisel so anxious? Like it's because like Jews were like murdered 15 years ago. So it becomes like less. So it's like when you think about it like that's like it's like less funny, and then it's like oh like it's not even a Jewish actor doing that thing, and it almost becomes like offensive where like there's this non-Jew kind of like exploiting all of the trauma of these Jewish characters to like try to sound more like authentic.
But don't you think that's just
those circles?
Don't you think that's more of just a flaw in the acting and not a flaw in the principle? If she did it in a more subtle way and less over the top way, you would have been like, that was really good.
I think that's probably the way they wanted it. So I think they wanted her to be a little bit of a caricature.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going for that, there needs to also be the sensitivity of why that caricature exists.
But again, that has nothing to do with
down that rabbit hole. It should be like, so a Jewish actor should play her.
Well, no, because maybe a Jewish actor wouldn't do it well either. Like my point is, it's a problem in the portrayal, not in the problem of, but it's not a problem of her ethnicity. It's just she didn't do it well enough.
No, that's not, because I think a Jewish actress could have done it the same exact way. But it's almost, it's a little bit like blackface to me, like a little bit, or like someone who's not black like doing the like ghetto accent. And you're like oh, like why does that accent exist? Why like why is he living?
But the blackface has a particular history of that's rooted in like theater, and that's why it's particularly.
I think it's the same thing. Like Sarah Silverman had a great line that Jews can play ugly Jewish characters, but they usually don't want to hire a Jew to play a hot Jewish character. It's usually a non-Jew who plays attractive Jewish characters.
Yeah, but I just think
I think it's all rooted in anti-Semitism.
I think of viewing all of this stuff in the arts through a racialized lens is silly. Like there's all these kinds of people in the world, and if you want to create characters that are compelling, it takes a lot of work. But I don't think you have to say like only gays should play gays, only straights should play straights, only this person. Like you cast for a specific thing. If somebody looks Jewish enough from a specific area and they happen to not be Jewish but can really hone in on a character and do a good job, like think of some of the best actors. I don't know if I don't know if whatchamacallit, Gary Oldman played Churchill and had to like wear all this stuff, a fat suit, prosthetics, all these things to transform into the character. Churchill probably had an extremely different background ethnically, socially than Ullman, and he transformed into him.
So if you're
So
like a really fat guy watching that, and you're like, "Oh, this takes me out of it,"
I
'cause
think that's
know
ridiculous.
how hard it is to be fat. I'm
You're
just
hearing
saying
yourself. You're
that-
hearing yourself.
I'm hearing myself, but I think that's valid. Of like, if so, there's probably not that many people out there like that who are so fat and are like, I don't want,
And who are
I don't want
incredible
someone
actors.
exploiting my condition. No. I'm talking about as a viewer. But I think there probably are a lot of Jewish viewers who start to think to themselves the way I'm thinking to myself, and I think that's problematic.
I can't think of it now, but I'm trying to think of examples of people who played ethnicities or other people that they weren't a part of, but they were acting and did a really good job of it. Like, I'm trying to think of that.
I mean,
It's sort of
Al Pacino in Scarface is a good one.
okay, and it's an iconic role.
He was like an Italian guy playing
A Cuban. Should Cubans have a right to be upset about that, or did Al Pacino do service to the role? I mean, it's kind of crazy.
If I was a Cuban,
I don't know. I think it's kind of nuts.
I wonder because he played this like over the top like crazy Cuban guy who like was a cocaine dealer.
Look,
Like,
it's
this awful person.
I'm not saying
I wonder.
I'm not saying there's no gray area. They asked Denzel Washington about whatchamacallit, like, the issues about race and cinema and ethnicity, and he goes, look, Steven Spielberg could have made Goodfellas. Martin Scorsese could have made Schindler's List. But it's about culture. There's certain sensitivities that Steven Spielberg has to Jewish culture and he's aware of, and there are certain things that Martin Scorsese has about Italian culture that he's aware of. And that's a very fair point. However, if Scorsese made Schindler's List and it was amazing and he pulled it off, then he pulled it off. I don't object in principle to an artist trying to tell a good story or writing a song about something he experienced or researched or whatever.
I don't object in principle either. I object in my
execution
experience of it.
execution.
In my experience of it, like watching it, I would feel ickier watching a Scorsese Holocaust picture. I just would. It wouldn't land the same way for me.
What if it was great and amazing? Then you would be like, this is great. He's really incredible. The casting's incredible. The writing's incredible.
Probably.
And it's an amazing story.
Quentin
Tarantino made his version of it, which has its like cringe moments, but it's it's sort of a superhero version through his perspective. When he made
and it's uncomfortable. I think that's what he's going for. I think he's trying to make
yes. So he's not trying to make an emotionally compelling story. He's trying to make a superhero comic books version of it.
No, listen. If Scorsese made a great Holocaust picture, I would probably forget myself for a while.
Correct.
And lean into it. That probably says more about Scorsese than whether or not it's the right thing to do, or I still like sort of at some point I would end up feeling weird about it.
Again, the argument stems around an argument of execution versus principle, and I don't object to any of this in principle.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about experience versus principle. I don't think it's just execution because I think even after a while.
Well, it's semantics.
When I'm out of the movie, it's not because you're talking about if Scorsese can make a good enough movie, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
And I'm saying no matter how good it is, there's still a part of me that feels icky about it.
You're objecting in principle then, even though you're saying you're not. In principle, you're against it because there's just something wrong with it no matter how good the movie is.
No, because I don't think Scorsese shouldn't be allowed to do it. I don't think it's wrong. I just find a certain discomfort in it.
Well, I don't know. Then we're talking semantics here. The idea of Scorsese making a movie makes you uncomfortable. About the Holocaust makes you uncomfortable. No matter how good it is. I think is
the viewing experience is uncomfortable.
What if the viewing experience was compelling and accurate and incredible?
Well, I mean, like overall, my entire viewing experience from like stepping into the theater to thinking about it 20 years later.
Yeah.
would still be off.
So I don't know what you call that because we're going in circles language-wise.
So.
I think in principle, you're not saying it's wrong, but in principle, you're uncomfortable with it. Meaning fundamentally, because Scorsese, an Italian guy, made a Holocaust movie, it doesn't matter how it was executed. It doesn't matter if it was done really well. You have a discomfort with it. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I fundamentally disagree with that.
Not an objection, just a discomfort.
I think we all live in this world where we're experiencing things from close quarters and from a distance. We're observing cultures of all sorts from inside and from outside, and people should be allowed to tell whatever stories. And how the story unfolds sometimes can be a caricature, and I don't like that. And you could call it offensive, you can call it not done well, all of that. But stories like that have been done by Jews too, who've talked about Jewish communities like the Hasidic community, when an unaffiliated Jewish director who's didn't grow up with any of this makes it about that. He's Jewish. All the actors are Jewish, but they all say it's hotter than the burning bush in here. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is just not right. So to me, it's culture and affiliation with culture, not race or ethnicity.
Fair.
You know. Now, certain races it's harder to do because, you know, by just the optics alone, it's harder to portray someone that you look nothing like. But even so, it's like, this is art. It's all about pretend. We're creating stories, and it's pretend. So you're trying to convey a character or transform who you are into the person you're portraying. So I don't think you base that off of the skills and ability of the actor and the writing and the director, not off of the race of the person who's channeling it. Even though that might be beneficial to the character if the person is also Jewish. I don't think it's a rule, because the point is who can do the job best. And I agree with you, a lot of people haven't done the job well. I don't think in Mrs. Maisel or whatever. Like, they maybe didn't do the job best, but what if you found out Maisel had a Jewish mom and it was the same exact character? It would offend you the same.
That show really is over the top.
I'm saying, if you found out she happened to have a Jewish mom, would it change anything about the show's portrayal of Jews for you?
Oddly enough, I think it probably would.
Well, that's weird. To me, that's weird. That makes no rational sense to me, because it's still the same character being shown to the world in a caricaturish way.
Well, I mean, overall, it bothers me that the Jewish experience isn't considered diverse.
Yeah. Kind of a separate point, but I get it. I get the idea that
Well, it's all ravel because the whole conversation starts with why all the other groups have to be represented, but Bradley Cooper can play a Jew. Like that's where it starts. It's like a Hollywood conversation.
I don't know. He played an Italian in that movie, The Brit Hustle. He had like an Italian accent in that movie. He plays a raccoon with an Italian accent in the Avengers. Why didn't they get a real raccoon?
It's also
Guardians of the Galaxy. Did you ever think about that? There's not a real raccoon being used in that movie.
That's very funny. It's also complicated because boots on the ground, the movie might not have been made if Bradley Cooper wasn't going to be in it. So the person who's making the movie and the Bernstein family was probably given the choice at some point, like, hey, Bradley Cooper's attached. The studio wants to move forward. How do you feel? And they probably said, great, let's do it. You know, they probably weren't like, well, my dad was a Jew, so we have to get a Jewish actor. And like, probably no one wanted to finance it without Bradley Cooper. So like, the reality of it is, in most cases, you could either have the show with a Jew, without a Jew, not have the show with a Jew, or have the show without a Jew. And people choose, the latter. Like, okay,
people
let's
choose
move forward.
People also choose the better actor. Bradley Cooper's an amazing actor, so I'd rather have a great actor portray it well than a Jewish actor who isn't.
There are a lot of pretty good Jewish actors.
Yeah,
he's probably the only one who wanted to do it.
Yeah,
and had the rights to it or something.
Was it in your opinion ableist for Jamie Foxx to play Ray Charles, or should they have gotten another blind pianist?
But I'm saying that was a different time. I'm saying that, like, we're talking about in 2023, the conversation of representation is
I know
every meeting about casting.
100%, and I don't vibe with any of it as far as representation.
Right.
That's why
I do vibe with a lot of it.
Interesting. I don't. I think it's all very destructive to the arts and to openness and conversation, hyper-racializing everything. That's just my take. So this falls under the same category. Let's say it was being made today. Just hypothetically, is it ableist and wrong for Jamie Foxx, an incredible pianist, musician, actor, to play an incredible portrayal of Ray Charles? Should they look for a blind guy who can do it?
The argument is, if there's a blind guy who's as good as him, why not cast a blind guy? That's the argument.
Yeah, but there isn't.
There are plenty of good. Yeah, like, I mean, it's like there are plenty of good trans actors and gay actors. Why not just do that? Like, why are you going out of your way to get someone who doesn't understand this character experience? That's the argument. I'm not saying I'm making it.
It's a terrible argument. So no offense to you. I know. I think it's ridiculous. Think about that movie.
You're not a blind actor, though. If you were a blind actor, you'd probably feel differently.
It's just like in Dallas Buyers Club. What's his name? Jared Leto playing the trans friend. And he did an amazing job. I thought it was an incredible role. He was an incredible actor in it. I'm just saying it's called acting. This is the world of acting. It's called pretend. So, best actor wins. Yeah. That's all I say.
You wouldn't feel like... if they were casting for a voice for a really like nebby Jewish little rat in like the upcoming Disney movie, like a rat who sells out all the other animals in the sewer, and like you, and it was between you and someone else, and they went with the goy, you wouldn't feel like, hey, come on.
I would say that I could do it better, but like that's it. I'm saying I could do it better because I get that voice. Come on, everybody, let's go. Everyone upstairs. I'm gonna give you some cheese.
That's the argument.
But
that's the argument.
No, but my skills as an actor could be informed by my experience, and that would be a better choice. But that's my opinion, not necessarily so. And that's it. It's not I'm Jewish, so I deserve the role. It's what that means. But if that
deserve, it's just like
no, you're saying deserve. You're saying represent. You're saying representation. You deserve it. You have an entitlement to that role.
No, I don't use the word deserve really. I'm not saying.
Whatever, entitlement. You are saying that. You're saying based on the fact that simply because I'm a Jew versus the other guy. What if the guy did it and he nailed the role? So he nailed the role. Good for him. If he did a bad job, I'd be annoyed. I'd be like, that's annoying. I should have gotten the role. Not because I'm Jewish.
I'm not saying nailed. I'm saying like pretty equal. You guys, it could go either way.
Yes,
I think you would give it to the Jewish guy.
Because he does the role. But let's say we both audition and I sucked.
Well, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
Ami, you would never suck.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, I'm just saying, I think Jamie Foxx, first of all, there's a rare breed of blind piano actors who could ever do it. I just don't like viewing...
From the South.
I don't think viewing everything through racialized lenses and attributing things to immutable characteristics, such as what ethnicity you're born to, if you're blind or not, your skin color, these are not the things we use to assess somebody's ability to portray and do certain things in the world of acting or the arts or anything. Judge people based on their ability to do the role.
So, speaking of talent, have you heard of Bobbi Althoff?
Your transitions are killing this thing. We have to move on. That was a lot. That was like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, tell me your take on Bobbi Althoff.
Do you know about her? So she's
taken over the internet by storm.
Yeah, so she seemingly by storm. This clip, someone sent me a clip a few weeks ago saying, I don't know why, but I can't stop laughing at this. And it was this short blonde, like, I don't know, 25-year-old like woman interviewing this guy called, I think, Funny Freddy or something.
Okay.
Whatever, this very, very odd black guy. And it was just this very uncomfortable, awkward conversation, but like funny and weird. It was like if The Office was a podcast. Yeah.
It was so awkward and uncomfortable, and you couldn't tell if it was real. She was like, so are you from?
That's the thing.
Do you like anything? I don't like you. I don't like you. And she's kind of like, okay. Do you not want to be here?
To me?
Do you not want to be here right now?
And it's weird. You don't know what's real and what's not. It's like a pretty fascinating piece of like content.
Yeah.
And then from there you go to her page and she has like an episode with Drake, Mark Cuban, and like Rick Glassman, this comedian. And you're like, what is this person?
Yeah.
And like I think in the span of like 6 weeks she went from seemingly nothing to having one of the biggest podcasts in the world and having like a team of 15 people at WME repping her. Like she's on Good Morning America. She like went from nothing. The real story is she had 3 million followers before she launched this podcast. She was like a mom influencer on TikTok. And then she tried this podcasting out. She did something really smart, which was she would tell her 3 million followers, hey, if you suggest somebody to be on my podcast and you can actually make that happen, I'll give you $300. So someone would be like, Mark Cuban, and she'd be like, great, if you can put me in touch with Mark Cuban, you get $300. And
who did she say that to?
Her followers. Oh. So she got Rick Glassman, this comedian, and then she got Drake, and Drake is someone on Drake's team is a genius of just keeping him relevant and like in the right places at the right time. He always does this. He like does verses on unknown singer songs that end up blowing up. Like he's so good. But anyway, he did it, and now she's like a whole thing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of fascinated by it.
Well, she recently had an issue with Dave Portnoy. She was on his podcast being interviewed. She also said, like, I'm totally broke and like I'm maxing out my credit cards. I don't know what's happening. He's like, well, that's not going to be for long. Don't worry. But he then like his media team from the BFF pod put it with like Richards and whatever, like that podcast he does.
Yeah,
They put out
Josh
some
Richards.
clip, Josh Richards. They put out a clip and they did some weird censoring thing to Dave, which put out a rumor that she got divorced because she slept with Drake on that podcast or something, and it ended up becoming this big rumor because she was like, I asked her, is it true there's a rumor going around that you had something with Drake and it ended up getting you divorced? And she said in the DMs, I'm not going to comment on that publicly, but no, that's not true at all. But then in the clip that the podcast released, they said, so she told me she's not going to comment publicly, but she said, and it, like, they beeped it out, and it sort of blew up the rumor. And so Dave Portnoy, this was happened today. He put out a big public apology to her. That my media team put that out, and I ripped them to shreds for doing that. And he showed screenshots with his media team, like, how could you do that? That's just totally wrong. And she, like, even snaps back at him, like, how could you do that to me? Like, she snapped back at Dave Portnoy. But anyway, that's just a recent little piece of drama. Yeah. I don't know, like, what's your take? Like, she's exploding in a specific way. It's kind of interesting.
My take on it is, this is something we spoke about a few weeks ago of like the dream of like just like getting picked. And people are accusing her of being an industry plant. Like, it seems like she got picked, and the industry was like, you are now famous.
Right.
And like that is sort of something I always sort of like dream about almost.
Yeah.
But I think since in the last couple of years, especially since we did this podcast, have moved away from more.
Yes.
And like, so I'm interested in sort of the hidden story of everything that led up to that.
10 years to an overnight success.
Right,
10 years to an overnight. And
she didn't come out of nowhere. But also, it's really fascinating. She was on Rick Glassman's podcast. Like,
right.
You know, he did hers. Now she's doing his, but hers was nothing when he did it, and now it's huge. And now she's coming onto his. It leapfrogged his by like leaps and bounds in the last few weeks, which is like wild. But they have this. He's this really interesting interviewer and comedian. He has this podcast called Take Your Shoes Off.
Yeah.
I didn't realize.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's
I love Rick
autistic,
Glassman.
Really funny. He does an amazing job editing. It's a really like worthwhile hour of your time to watch. He's really, really funny. And so she comes in character basically as this awkward, confrontational, weird person. Mm-hmm. And for the first 20 minutes, they're really like they're
squaring off.
He's like, I thought we were going to do a real conversation, and you're doing your character. Why are you doing this? And where they get to is she really doesn't know what she's doing yet. She's really not. She was picked out of a crowd, but because she doesn't have 10 years of experience, mm-hmm. she doesn't know what she's doing. And they talk about it. Like, she doesn't know what her voice is.
They talk about it on the pod when it gets real after the 20-minute standoff.
Real, like she's like how he mentioned something about a moment. He's like, and I don't mean like this is only going to last for a moment, and she's like, no, really, how long do you think is going to last for? He's like, honestly, 2 to 3 months. I think this thing will 2 to 3 months, and then from there you're gonna have this whole other type of career. But they have a real conversation about it, and he's basically like mentoring her of like
nice.
How to be.
I gotta watch this episode.
And podcaster. It's really fascinating, but it's fascinating to watch someone with like an agent, 10 million followers. She can get anyone she wants in the world, and she hardly knows what to do with it because she doesn't have that struggle to find her voice until she's ready for it. And so watching her in real time figure all this out is really cool. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like, yeah, like you're not famous yet. Like you should like almost be happy, like earn it. Because
I always say that.
Yeah, it is something you say.
Yeah, you don't want to have it happen too quick because then you're not armed. You don't have the armor built in to like withstand all the crap. Now, Rick Glassman's fascinating to me because he talks about his autism a lot, but he's so plugged in and so sharp and so quick. And maybe I don't know enough about autism, but I'm like, this guy, I don't know what his autism is, but he's socially adept. He's hilarious. He's very smart, very socially adept. So, like, I don't know where the autism is. I don't see it, but I believe him. But you know,
yeah, me too. It's hard to. I guess some of his like objectivity or
hyper focus. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's not an act. Like he sort of is like cold in that way.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Where some of the humor.
I've never seen a version of autism like that, or someone espouse autism and be as funny and talented and like, I don't know, plugged in a way. Because I always understood autism to be slightly different frequency, you know, especially when it comes to humor. And he's hilarious. So, I don't know.
Yeah, he like fully gets the dynamic and
Yeah.
plays with it.
Yeah.
Or at least, or so I thought.
But he's so funny about it. Like, I think Bill Burr was asking him, so, like, what is autism? What is it? He's like, and they're sitting and listen, and, like, he's talking to him. He's like, okay, well, Bill, are you sitting down? And Bill's, like, on the couch, like,
Yeah.
but, like,
Yes.
he throws people off.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he tries to explain it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's a good voice for it in terms of explaining what's going on. But it's just, like, there's obviously more mild forms. It's a very broad term now. So, anyway. Yeah, I got to watch that podcast. I'll watch Rick Glassman and Bobby.
Would you just watch the first half hour?
Mm-hmm. Fascinating.
It was quite something.
Yeah, skyrocket to success. You think you get picked. I mean, it has a huge cost if you're not prepared and if you haven't been working all this time. Like, oftentimes, if she already built 3 million followers, that was probably a slower roll, and then something finally clicked. There are those moments that happen, you know. But
You could tell she knows a lot about how to go, what being viral means and the work that takes.
yeah,
But she doesn't quite know how to be a performer.
Right.
Like outside of TikToks.
outside of the controlled space of social media.
Yeah, which is something you talk about. Also, these TikTok people who get shows and they're like, I don't know what to do on stage.
Yeah. It happens. And I was fortunate enough to have come from a world where I'm aware of that. Like, if I just threw up a video and all of a sudden I had no performance experience, no industry experience, it could have been much worse, in terms of that. So I was patient with it in development a little bit. So anyway, we're at the 40-minute mark, Michael, and it's late, and I'm done. Let's get really weird and Bobby about it. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Do you mean that? What is this?
Yeah, I do mean that.
What is this?
I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Okay.
I think I've said what I have to say, and you said what you have to say, and I'm no longer interested.
Okay. I had a story, but I'll tell it next time.
Is it a long one?
It would require your
Response.
response.
Should we save it?
We'll tell it next time. Well, I mean, I think we have to if you're not.
Yeah.
If you're not
Yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna call. Sorry, I cut off the story, but hey, let's open 71 with it. Don't forget
I'll
it.
just put out my own. I'll just edit this together.
Okay.
My own story at the end.
Very good. All right. Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Bye. That's episode 70, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next time for 71 with Michael's story, a cliffhanger for the peeps.